I walked fearfully down High Street that first night. I cautiously passed Alice Faye's, a biker bar, the kind of a place where if you went in and didn't have a gun, they'd give you one. Passing the transvestite prostitutes on the sidewalk, I was reminded that this was the heart of the notorious Short North District of 1986. And there I saw him, sitting on the Greystone Wall, a hangout for boy prostitutes and winos. Was he ever drunk? An old man with lots of street years. I could only wonder how he could be that drunk and not fall off of the wall. Night after night, he sat on that wall, swaying back and forth in a half-conscious stupor until he passed out. His shirt was stained with slobber. He reeked of stale beer and urine. The sole survivor of an apartment fire. He wasn't easy to look at. You see, he had climbed into a third-story bathtub and sucked the air out of the drain until he was rescued. One ear was burned away, and his lips were mostly just scars. And his name was Irv. Most nights I prayed a brief prayer over Irv, and I stuck one of our cards in his pocket. I hoped he would wake up and come visit our small storefront on High Street. Weeks went by with nothing. Then it happened. Irv wandered in. Have you ever heard the phrase, be careful what you pray for? You might get it. That was Irv. The food we served never seemed to suit him. The things we gave him were never what he wanted. He was impossible to please. Once he cussed me out because I gave him a pair of brand new pants, but they were blue. He wanted green. This from a man who had not had a pair of shoes that didn't come out of a garbage dumpster in 30 years. A fact to soon be important. I have to confess to you, I grew to hate Irv's guts. Every night when I went to the Short North District, that old man was going to be there, and nothing I could ever do would satisfy him. This went on 7 days a week for 2.5 years. Then I did the funeral for a 19-year-old prostitute who'd climbed in a truck with a guy and turned a trick. He slit her throat, stuffed her body in a garbage bag, and dumped her in a creek bed on the west side of town. Nobody wanted her. But in the midst of that funeral service, Irv walked in and listened, and he invited God into his life. Now, I'm not telling you that Irv experienced a personality transplant or that he became the king of hygiene. But before long, whenever a new person came to visit our center, Irv would get up and he'd walk right up in their face and he would proclaim, "Since I come here, I don't drink no more." Well, every year at Christmas time, we mailed out a list of the items people needed. In response, people partnered with us by supplying those items. And there was one thing that Irv wanted more than anything else: a pair of Bwack West shoes, size 10 wide. He pestered me and pestered me about those shoes. Well, we didn't supply shoes, but that didn't stop Irv. So I put shoes for Irv on the Christmas list. December 23rd arrived, and so had all of the Christmas gifts, except for one item. You guessed it, a pair of Bwack West shoes, size 10 wide. I asked God why those shoes hadn't come in, and I heard that familiar voice speak just to my heart. "Steve, I want you to buy those shoes." So 3:30 Christmas Eve morning found me shopping in an all-night discount store for those shoes. God has such a sense of humor. There was one pair of Bwack West shoes, size 10 wide, in the whole shoe department, and they were on the bottom of a stack. And they were the most expensive shoes in the entire store. Christmas Eve, I took the shoes to Irv. Remember, I told you he hadn't had a pair of shoes that didn't come out of a garbage dumpster in 30 years. I soon discovered that 10 wide was just a number to Irv. He had no idea what size shoes he wore. However, Irv was determined. He was going to put those size 11 feet in those size 10 shoes. Those shoes never knew a lace. The tongue stood straight up. But when Irv got his feet down in those shoes, he looked up with a toothless grin. And he began to dance in circles like Frosty the Snowman when they put the silk hat on his head. And as he slowly turned, he said, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Words I never before heard him say. 3 months later, Irv pulled me up underneath one sweat-stained arm and Wanda underneath the other. He pressed us against his shirt, which still hadn't been washed in months, and said, "Steve, I really love you guys." Those were the last words I heard Irv say. The police found him dead 3 days later. And as I reflect back, I'm so glad that Irv invited God into his journey of life and that God accepted Irv right where he was. Irv didn't have to change anything to earn God's acceptance. That's how God is. He accepts us right where we are. All we have to do is allow him to do that. I'm also glad that God loved Irv far too much just to leave him where he was. And as God accompanies us on our journey of life, that he will take us places we could never go alone. God gave Irv a family, gave him relationships, and I believe that today Irv is dancing with Jesus in a white robe and a pair of Bwack dress shoes, size 10 wide. I also recognize that Irv was used by God to help get me to go some places in my journey of life that I would not have gone on my own. Irv was used to stretch me far beyond my comfort zone, and for that I am forever grateful. So how is this journey called life going for you? Perhaps it couldn't be any better. Then again, maybe it's a struggle. Either way, it's good to be wrapped in the arms of the God who will embrace you wherever you are and will take you places you could never go alone. I'm Steve Campbell. If you will email me at the address on your screen, I would love to begin a conversation with you about the journey of life. Tell me a little about your journey, where you are now. Where would you like for the journey of life to go? Let's begin a conversation. Remember, wherever you are on the journey of life, God accepts you. He wants to embrace you right where you are. And he loves you far too much to leave you there. So let's talk soon.